So the question I'd put to you is like, is there any value to a conversation in which you know the other person is simply going to agree with you?
Yeah, because the nature of people and you being different people, you're going to have, for one thing, different viewpoints on why you think something. So
Like the
even if
same
you,
top.
yeah, on the same topic, even if you agree, you're going to have different points. And secondly, you're probably, even if it's really nuanced and small things, you're going to disagree on some point. You're not going to agree on every single point just because you're a different person.
Well, I would, some people when they get sort of agreeable, especially like this is, when you start getting like fanboys and sort of thing like that, like people will, if all they want to do is basically gain regard with you, they will agree to everything that you say.
That's just lazy, and I would argue that's detectable after a time, so you'd be able to just be like, yeah, you're disagreeing with everything I say, aren't you? I can realize that you're probably not saying anything valuable.
Right. It's unfortunate that that does happen to be true, but like yeah, it's one of those things where like that would definitely kill a relationship with me is if somebody just blindly agreed with everything that I said and then, basically respouted everything that I'd said back to me. I'd be like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
are a person without substance." I would probably make that judgment call and that would be bad of me, but
that's not going to happen most of the time if you're having a real conversation. I think we agree on a lot of things, and like Maggie and I agree on a lot of things, but we still, actually, Maggie and I agree on most things. Like most of our opinions, if you like put it on a list, do you agree with this? Do you believe in this? Like, what do you, even if it was like a thing that we wrote short paragraph answers to, I bet we would have really similar answers on most things that you would ask of us.
right. So I happen to agree with you. I think there is a certain value to be had with having conversations with people that you pretty much know they're already going to agree with you. Mostly, what I think it serves. Um, do you know who the Toastmasters are?
Yeah, I think so. It's like a comedy group that,
Okay, yeah, that's true. There isn't a comedy group that go by that name, but no,
maybe that's Roast Masters.
well, yeah, that yeah, I'm trying to remember. Like, do they call themselves the Roastmaster or the Toastmasters? Anyway, the Toastmasters is a public speaking group in which people basically go there to um, formulate, topics and develop their public speaking skills. And I happen to think that one of the things that does help when you're talking about certain topics with somebody that you know they're going to agree with you is it gives you a safe place to develop your arguments or your thoughts or your reasons so that you know that you can basically articulate your argument and you can basically formulate your argument because some of the best like I would say public speaking topics that I've heard of is basically people who are going to basically they're not going to come up with a formulaic speech. They're not going to like come up with like uh, I'm going to, say this in paragraph verbatim, 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 but actually they're just simply going to talk about it. And they've already talked about it like 4 times, so they're very articulate about what they want to say. And I think that you get a lot of content, like it has a really great content density for what they're going to say. And so I think that does happen naturally when you basically get into sort of an area where you know someone's going to agree with you. However, um, I actually because of the way that we consume content right now, um, I think that we are tending to favor people who are going to be in agreement with us. And that if we actually listen to someone who's going to be in contention with us, like as a culture, we're probably going to take a defensive role rather than take like a basically an observer role or listening role.
Right, where you go, oh, really? Like, you don't agree with me on that. Why is that? Instead, we're probably like, most of the time, I think more people take the reaction of, no, you're wrong. Let me tell you why.
Yeah, like I don't like I'm not that's really hard to classify myself as kind of not an extremist, but I'm not an extremist when it comes to basically the two political parties that happen to be in the mainstream right now. I'm not extremely liberal. I'm not extremely conservative, right? But the thing is that I will watch, some Fox News, or I will listen to some podcast by a very extreme liberal, so that basically I can listen to them for somebody I don't agree with. And I think it does the same thing in the same way that it like helps me articulate what I would want to say about the topic, right?
I agree. I agree. Knowing what the other side thinks, or knowing what one extreme side thinks, is very valuable. But I think that, like you said earlier, there's kind of a trend towards just agreeing with, your own views. I think Facebook actually actively does this, so you will like, and it basically is an algorithm that makes things appear to you if you're more likely to like them or more likely to share them.
Yeah, they're not going to add things that you basically dislike, or basically
Right,
that
so it
you
causes a feedback loop, and it's no good. I totally am not for that.
right. And it's kind of one of those. Well, it's one of the problems with hyperlinks in general, like with the YouTube too, is that you can kind of get stuck in sort of a feedback loop if you're just basically going to watch like
Things that you would agree with, right?
right.
Well, the other thing is that, that I really wanted to say is that that's true. While all that is true, there's the other side of it, which is that you can listen to extreme points of view and it be silly or it be pointless because they're so extreme that they're not even making sense. Like, there's no reason to listen to them because they're too extreme.
Well, I think it's kind of like one of the things is like what is the truth content of what they're saying? They've probably, it's kind of like one of those things where like, for instance, like you've stated this about in the past, where like, anecdotal evidence, right? Where their experience may have not constituted a reality, where they may have basically experienced sort of a fluke or one-of type of thing.
Okay, so to give people some context, anecdotal, like, evidence is a fallacy. It's like a logical fallacy. You can say, well, I experienced this a bunch of times, but that's your experience, and that's not necessarily the truth of, reality.
See, I would disagree. Not all anecdotal experience is untruthful. It just happens to be that it's only one of those things where
No, you can't really use it in an argument effectively, because you're basically saying, oh, well, this is what I experienced, this is what I experienced, and that means it's how things are.
I think that you can, if it's we're basically saying that I don't think that my experience was unique.
No, that's that is the fallacy.
Well, the thing is that like that's how we build context so that it's not anecdotal. Like there is no such thing as really uh, anecdotal if you're talking about like at what point do you reach a consensus where some experience is shared with so many people that it becomes non-anecdotal. Otherwise, you basically are not really accredited to say anything.
It's because, yeah, well, it's because you can. That's different. Okay, if you're having a conversation and you're telling stories, that is anecdotal. When you're making it a true argument, or you're like having a discussion where you're trying to explain something to somebody, you can use examples. But if your argument is just your anecdotal, well, I know this person who, or I know a case where, or this happened to me.
Yeah, I would say that the problem with anecdotal evidence
That's
is
not
when
evidence.
well, any sort of experience could be construed as evidence, but the problem
Okay,
is
I
that
guess that's true.
if it's only singularly you, then it's a problem. Like you have to basically say
Yeah.
that not only did I experience this, not only did someone else experience this, but there would possibly be a way to do a impartial study to reach the same sort of conclusion.
Right.
Like there should be a way to take my experience out of this and it still be true.
It's just used a lot, and it's like anecdotal evidence is misused. So yeah, you're right. Like it has a place.
It's definitely one of those. It's a pitfall. It's definitely a pitfall of current sort of rhetoric.
That's all my argument was about that. I don't even know what we were talking about before that.
We tend to do that. We'll like
Welcome to Gravity Well Podcast, where the conversation will be miles away from where it began.
yeah, that's actually pretty good. I like that.